little echo.
Thursday, late night happy hour, full house. Haven't had this in a while. Cofield, our legal expert, former public servant, Justin Watkins. Adam Hill is in after battles with COVID, trips to Cabo. It's been all over the place. We were just talking off the air about the vaccine. I don't need specifics of what we were speaking about, but where do you actually go to find out when you could get the vaccine, like tiers, all this? Where do you sign up or look for info?
So, I mean, where I went to get on this was Southern Nevada Health District website, and they have 4 locations that you could sign up for this week. Is Cashman, Western High School, Southern Nevada Health District, like main office, and then I don't recall the fourth. When I was on there, the only appointments that were available were a couple days out at Western. And on the drop down for booking an appointment, it will allow you to book anyone from tier 1 to tier 2, all the way through tier 2. So tier 1 is like the medical professionals, and police, anybody in healthcare, long-term care facilities, long-term care patients. And then that's in the workforce lane. On the other side, anybody 70 and older. Tier 2 is a lot of different workforce groups. So that would be like a lot of the essential worker categories, community support, lawyers, judges, I guess media's in there, grocery store workers, those kinds. There's I think. Oh, I have it right in front of me. Hold on a second. I'll tell you exactly.
So the site, while Justin's doing that, is it's snhd.info/COVID.
Yeah, and so tier 1 I talked to you about. Tier 2 would be public safety and security. That's Department of Corrections, law enforcement, public safety, national security. Frontline community support. That's teachers, higher ed, community support. Frontline. That's food, shelter, legal services, social services, and those providing necessities of life to needy groups. So that's caregivers. Continuity of governance. So elected officials and people who work in government, public transportation, public health workforce, mortuary services, supply chain and logistics, commerce and service industries, infrastructure. And there's subcategories of each of those. The Southern Nevada Health District and the state of Nevada actually have a pretty good website on this that breaks down I'll even just sort of show you the different lanes that they have. That's all on their website. And then if you're still confused, they actually give a further, more complete description of each of those categories in the following pages.
Are you offended?
Well, here's the thing. We all know that all lawyers aren't created equal in the eyes of essential, but we're sort of grouped together. You can't tell me that a criminal defense attorney and a prosecutor aren't essential at this point. You can't have people sitting in jail. You're just saying, well, we're not going to let you meet with your lawyer, and your lawyer can't present your case or fight your case. You can't do that. We have to allow people to have their constitutional rights protected. In our practice, a significant portion of our practice is elder law, elder abuse and neglect. So we often represent people in long-term care facilities, nursing homes, those kinds of things. I can't even get into any of those to meet with clients right now. That's not the biggest portion of our practice, but it is a significant portion of our practice. You've got lawyers who are doing trusts and estates. In this time where people are uncertain about the longevity, to not be able to prepare for the inevitable that seems like pretty damn essential to me right now. But yeah, I mean, if we're talking about, is it essential for my clients in a car accident case that I be vaccinated? Probably not. I can take care of that remotely. Yes, I can. Can I represent a nursing home resident remotely? Yeah, probably not. No, I can't. And they need representation. We have active, ongoing cases. So, I get it. I get it. When you see legal, it's like, bullshit. It's bullshit until you need us, you know?
What about media? Are we essential? Because I don't think we are. I know Adam's not. I'm more essential because I'm older and my body fat percentage is cholesterol's at a very high level. Very high level. Very good.
Here's the
thing. I think we should be at the back of the line for the most part.
Here's the thing I don't like about any of this, to be honest with you. When you create a workforce tier, you end up having these stupid arguments about who's more essential, a teacher, a doctor. Well, let's take doctors out of it. You know, the garbage man, a construction worker, a lawyer, and it is all bullshit. We all have essential functions in everything we do. If we didn't, you know, there wouldn't be a job. You know, in Las Vegas, probably, and in Nevada, probably one of the only states that does this, people who work in the resorts are considered essential because it's essential to our economic viability. I think if I were going to roll this out, if it were me, here's what I would do. I would say, number one, everybody who's providing healthcare gets vaccinated. Got to. And then everybody who's 70 and older goes next. And then if we have gone through those tiers and we haven't figured out everything else, then anybody else who wants it. Because that kind of debate is dumb, and it create about the essentialness of everybody's workforce. You know what? Everybody's workforce is essential to them. So, you know, let's get the most vulnerable, because I think the reality of what we're going to see is when the 70 and older get vaccinated, the death numbers and the hospitalization numbers are going to plummet, right? And for the rest of us, the essential or non, you're not going to see as serious of health concerns. We have 400,000 deaths in the United States due to COVID. 40% of those are in nursing homes. Like, let that sink in for a second. That's a shitload, man. There aren't that many nursing homes in the country to take up that percentage of the death toll. This is clearly a very contagious virus that is disproportionately harmful to the elderly. So let's take care of them first.
I also do believe the numbers are higher than that, but I mean, your point is obviously well taken. That is the most important thing. Because I've had this, and I'm sick of this is not a real virus nonsense, and it's obviously bullshit. Yes, it disproportionately affects the elderly, disproportionately poor people who haven't had good medical care throughout their life and that sort of thing. Clearly, but like people that are like, the numbers they count anything as COVID. Somebody, again, and we've brought this up, the excess death number is now over 480,000. 480,000 deaths above what was expected for the last year. If you feel that way and you don't think it's real, explain that. And if you can't, and if you don't have a reason for it, I'm not going to debate or talk about it any further. Now, I think the comeback would be to support what you're saying. The numbers the next couple of years are probably going to be way below expected death numbers, because people that would have died the next couple of years are dying during this. Like, that would be the comeback. But enough with the bullshit. It's not real. The numbers are fake. That's just fucking stupid. And it really eliminates a lot of the conversation. Like what you're saying, completely fair and accurate, of like, hey, let's get these people vaccinated. Then the numbers start to go down a little bit, and then we can start dealing with the rest of this. Like, that makes sense. That's true and fair. But when you start off with the concept of it's not real, like, stop this.
Yeah, and I think the very simplistic plan I just set forward is the easiest to administer too, right? Because anybody who's 70 and older, we have their information. They're on Medicare, right? They are eligible for Medicare. We could absolutely have their pharmacy. I don't know anybody who's 70 or older who doesn't have a pharmacy. Their pharmacy can contact them, and we call them in on appointments. It doesn't have to be as difficult as it has been made. And I think that there's blame to go all around, top to bottom. You know, the local and state officials saying the federal government didn't provide us enough guidance. Well, I can hear that to a little bit, but at some point, you know, you're elected to take care of your population, and you need to come up with a plan if there isn't one. You had enough of a ramp to figure that out. Now, their comeback to it, which is fair, which is why I think the feds have some culpability here as well, is we can't come up with a plan when they don't tell us how many we're going to get and when we're going to get it. And that rings pretty true to me too, especially when the Fed's guidelines are so complicated on these tiers, because it created paralysis by analysis, right? Like, okay, how do we make sure we don't go to the next tier before the first tier is done? And all these sub tiers within the tiers, 1A, 1B, 1C, 2A, 2B, 2C. And on top of it, we don't know how many we're going to get. And you know, as I understand from some Nevada officials, that's the frustration right now is we don't know how big the next shipment is, when it's coming in, and we never know until it gets here. And that's hard to plan for. And they think it's going to change because they've heard of now some federal plans that's coming into place with the Biden administration. So they're hopeful, but for these last 60 days, not quite 60 days, more like 45 days, you know, they don't know when they're going to get what.
And, you know, not to pile on, he's gone, so whatever. But when the person in charge is downplaying and sending out mixed messages, and as, you know, people have their feelings about, you know, Dr. Fauci or whatever, but he comes out today and he's like, hey, I can finally actually tell you guys the truth of what's going on. Like, that's it. That's a problem. That's been a problem for a while. And I know people hate everything's Trump's fault, but yeah, a lot of it kind of is. Like, the messaging was so bad because he's trying to downplay it to everybody that, like, all this got screwed up of like, how are we going to make this plan? That's not even a big deal anyway. Well, doesn't help.
I want to jump real quick on Pro Martini Maker's comment about you can't make an appointment till February 27th. So a couple things about that. Number one, I think that Cashman, by closing, is going to clear out all appointments, right? The Cashman appointments were only 7 days in advance, and they stopped taking appointments a couple days ago. They're going to close for the weekend. So all appointments should open up at the beginning of the week. And number two, some of the smaller sites like Western High School, they're only taking appointments out 3 days. Cashman's taking them out 7 days. I understand when you go to the website, it says all appointments booked till February 27th. Refresh,
Yep.
refresh all throughout the day, and you'll see stuff pop up. You will. I've seen it. So
I was just going to say that because as I said earlier, I had an appointment that I canceled because I was like, oh, I'm not supposed to get this yet, so I'm going to cancel this. But that was what it was. When they told us we were eligible to start getting appointments, I just refresh, and it popped up. Like, it was nothing. Here's one. And so then it happened a couple times throughout the day.
Yep. And, you know, part of what I had heard about some of the confusion, some of the word I'd heard early on is that there were so many people in tier 1 declining to get the vaccination that the fear is that they were going to have a bunch of waste. So a whole bunch of tier 2 did get vaccinated because the word was, if they show up, give it to them. You know, right. Like this stuff's going to go to waste. And now I hear that either sympathies have changed on whether or not they want to get it at tier 1, but there are now some tier 1 people who are still looking to get their first dose. So I think these sites are a little confused and jumping back and forth between only tier 1 and tier 1, tier 2.
Why is it laughable? I want one. Everybody should want one. I'm pretty sure.
I think he's very stuck on it should all be age no matter what.
Okay. Well, and if you're around people that are older.
I think I could buy that argument, except for one thing. If the science proves that being vaccinated, I'm not under 40, thank you.
I'm not 44.
If the science proves to be true that if you're vaccinated, you can't be a carrier, you can't be a host of the virus, then if people at a certain age group, you know what? I think you treat it like boarding a flight. We got the priority groups A, B, C, and we got standby. And if I go through all of those and you guys say no, standby is getting a shot, because just having more vaccinated people should slow the spread. Now, the caveat to that all is the science isn't conclusive yet on whether or not a vaccinated person can still be a host or not. They expect to know that answer in the next month or so.
Yeah, they don't. I've read so much about this that I obviously don't know. I'm not a scientist or a doctor, but I read a lot of studies. You're right that they're waiting to find out on the vaccine, because they're not injecting actual virus like they do in other vaccines. It's a
Correct.
different form. But they do think pretty definitively that you can't carry if you've had it. That you can't be a carrier.
Well,
but it's different if you have the vaccine.
In the more traditional ways of spreading, they believe, again, not conclusive, but they believe like it being in your lungs and you coughing or sneezing and spreading in that manner won't exist because it won't take hold there. But so that would but you could still carry it, say on your hands and spread it around. But the risk would be really low of a vaccinated person being a host. But no study or no scientist is saying that they can prove that yet. That's just what they expect as to how this would work. And they're waiting to have enough evidence to prove it. I will say one really cool thing that I learned about this different type of vaccine, this RNA, right, which is affecting like the DNA of the virus and our immune system, is based on what Moderna did and how they composed this vaccine and how it affects the RNA in our bodies. They are now in clinical trials on a similar type of vaccine for breast cancer. And like the hope is that this pandemic and the acceleration of this vaccine have pushed us along the way towards getting somewhere towards a cure for cancer. It's a little bit more complex with cancer because, and those who know me know why I would be researching this stuff. We had cancer in my household this during this pandemic. But here's what they think is, with cancer, it ties in with your specific DNA. So they can use the science that they've used for Moderna to come up with a generalized one. Then they take some blood from you, dial in your DNA with that specific vaccine. And so it's literally a vaccine for you, for your cancer. And that's in clinical trials right now, which is pretty freaking amazing. If what comes out of all this whole pandemic and lockdown is treatments or cure for cancer, I count it worth it.
Any more questions on the vaccine? Someone complimenting you on your setup.
Well, this is compliments of Steve Cofield. He gave me a Christmas present that I did not reciprocate.
Good for you.
I just accepted. Thank you, Steve.
It's kind of selfish on my part. I'm like, I want him to sound better. Here's a mic. It's a good sounding mic. So I think it's cool. All right, where do we start? Let's start with a little more on the continuing arrest of the rioters / terrorist / insurrectionist at the Capitol last week. So here is Crush on the door guy. What's his name? Patrick McGahee. I'll get this going here in a second. Yeah, so NBC News, FBI has arrested and charged Patrick McGahee in New York. They charged him with assault on a police officer and other charges related to the Capitol riot. He's accused of squeezing an Officer Hodges. Remember that horrific scene? So how much trouble is he in, Justin?
He's in a lot of trouble, right? I mean, we got felony battery. Whether they go for attempted murder or not, I don't know. We'll have to see what the charges go. But yeah, he's in a lot of trouble. Any of these people who entered the grounds are in some level of trouble. Felonies aren't insignificant, right? With felonies even if you get out of jail time, you're losing rights. You lose the right to vote in some states. You're going to lose the right to possess a firearm. So it's not without its impact. In some places, you're going to be on a registry. So, hey, I think he's in a lot of trouble because this is worse, right? We got, assault of an officer in addition to all the other felonies that are already going to be charged to him.
Adam, follow up with your questions. You were asking about the process, sedition, the charges. Go ahead.
Yeah, I got a couple of things, but my first question, that I was thinking about right away, and I could be totally wrong about this, but I thought one of the things I've learned from you in the past is, let's say you and your friends are breaking into a house, just some petty theft thing, like you're gonna go steal, a radio from somebody's house, whatever it is, and you do that, and somebody dies in the commission of that crime, even if it's your friend. I think this is the case. I remember that, me and my three friends break into a house. My friend gets shot by the homeowner. I'm liable for my friend's death, and I can be charged with the death because it was during the commission of a crime. Is that a real thing?
You got good memory on this, and you're so close to being right, but there's a couple little tweaks that make it wrong in this instance. It's called felony murder, so it can't be a petty offense. It has to be a felony. Okay, that's number one. Okay. And it only qualifies for certain felonies, not all felonies. And you know what's funny is sedition and insurrection are not felonies that qualify for felony murder.
Okay.
So, right. I would have guessed they absolutely apply, but I looked it up and they do not. They are not a category of felony that can qualify for felony murder. So unless you're one of the people who actually participated in committing the murder, you're not going to be charged because you entered the Capitol. And then also, while we're here, let's talk about the difference between sedition and insurrection. Insurrection, it can be a singular act. I go and do these things. I enter on a property that I'm not supposed to for the purposes of disrupting a government action. Sedition is basically the conspiracy form of that. We planned it together. We're going together. We're doing this together. So it's slightly more complicated than that. But for the purposes of the discussion, insurrection singular and sedition is plural.
It sounds like they're trying to make pretty major cases against a lot of these people, including, as you mentioned, sedition, insurrection, obviously very serious crimes. They're trying to piece together who the ringleaders were, if there was organization, because that would be really where the major crimes come into play. How difficult is that going to be for them to prove?
Well, I don't think.
And I guess, and just to follow up while you're thinking about it, how much organization, if me and 6 other guys are all right, listen, we're going to lead them. We're going to go over to the Capitol. We're not going to go in though. And then everybody just goes in and you're like, oh shit, that's not what we had in mind, but we were leading it.
Well, for insurrection and sedition, both, incitement is enough. So even if you didn't intend the consequences of what somebody else did, but you incited them to do it, you could still be liable for the consequences of the action, even if they weren't foreseeable to you. If they were foreseeable to a reasonable person, you're in there. And I forgot your first question.
Just how difficult are these cases going to be to make for prosecution?
Well, here they're going to be relatively easy because all these dumbasses organized online through all these electronic means, right? It's all Facebook groups, it's all Telegram. I don't even know what the hell that is, but apparently it's a super right wing thing where there's their version of Snapchat, I guess. But I mean, if the New York Times is getting these and publishing all of these different transcripts from these right wing groups on the internet, then it's going to be pretty easy to go, okay, well, you guys talked about going to the Capitol. You did that. You talked about going to Trump's rally. You did that. And you talked about going to the Capitol and, holding people accountable and killing people and et cetera. And that happened. So it's premeditated.
What about just the people who came up with and have been pushing QAnon theories for years? Like, if you've influenced people to this level, and many of them obviously are, I mean, you can track what they've said online and talked about, like they believe in what they're doing. Like they believe they're doing this for the good of the country, and they're doing it to free children that are being held as sex slaves, and like they believe they're doing the right thing here. Like the people that came up with these theories and have pushed these theories, even if they weren't part of it that day, do they have liability?
So here's where we come into the term of proximate causation or legal causation. That is, how far back the causal chain can you go before the law says that's too far? And ultimately, a judge would decide that. That's typically not going to be a question for the jury. It's going to be for the judge to determine what gets submitted to a jury on that. I'm going to say, like, if you're talking about anything that didn't have an immediate impact on that moment, they're probably not going to try to go there. Hey, in 2016, you got this one dude riled up, and then he joined this chat group, and then that chat group led to this group, and that group went. I don't think you're going to see that kind of thing. But it's not zero, right? I mean, I probably everybody's seen the sort of Howard Stern clips that are going around right now where he's talking about, hey, Charles Manson back in the day got all these crazy people together and then told them, hey, go over to Roman Polanski's house and scare the shit out of him. And his whole defense was, I didn't tell him to kill him. And that's not what I wanted them to do. I didn't know what they were going to do. And the argument was, no. You created this. You put the mindset in. You knew or you should have known what they were going to do. And I think that logic, in my mind, applies directly to former President Trump as well. I mean, clearly they were in upheaval about the lies he told that he got them fired up for. And then he specifically rallied them up and specifically sent them to the Capitol. And I don't care what else he said or didn't say. I know he didn't say go kill anybody, but I don't think he had to. And I think, people who try to parse that out, to them, I say, hey, Osama bin Laden didn't fly the fucking planes into the Twin Towers, but we absolutely held him accountable for that, right? It's his group, his influence. It's the people he sent. I don't see how this is different.
How much, if there is a trial against Trump, which would be, I think, bigger than the OJ trial, would be fantastic, just television. If there was, how much would the claims? It almost is like the claims made during the commission of a crime or whatever. But how much would the claims of the people, like, there's video, we're seeing it now all over the place of like they're in the Capitol, they're taking over, they're like pushing the cops back, and they're like, the president invited us. He told us we could be here. Like, we're here on his orders. Like, how much can that be taken into account? Is that hearsay, or is that like because it's used during the commission, because they're saying it during the commission of the crime, that it would be taken into consideration?
That's a good question, and I don't know that I have an exact answer to that because I think largely it's irrelevant if he didn't know they thought that. Because the question is going to be, would a reasonable person believe that when they heard what he was saying, that he was inciting them to violence and the lies that he told and what he led them up to, his actions and his words? Would a reasonable person think that he was directing them to commit this act? I think the reasonable person says yes. That a nonpartisan, reasonable person says yes. But in that mind, in that perspective, it wouldn't matter the mindset of the followers themselves, them coming in and said, we thought we were doing what the president said, because the court would say, well, you may not be the reasonable person standard. It's for the jury to determine what a reasonable person would do. To which I think your next question is, well, none of those are reasonable fucking people. And that's how he got what he wanted, right? Like, how do you put a reasonable person standard on a bunch of crazies? You know, I've been like completely enthralled in reading these stories about these followers right now and some of the things that have been going on these right-wing websites. I mean, there is a conspiracy going on right now that fucking people believe that right now Trump did a face change with Biden. Like fucking off the movie Face Off. Like, what the fuck? Yeah, prove me wrong.
Yeah, I'm in on this. Well, it is difficult. Like, and I've been really intrigued too. Like, I do a lot of the reading on the same stuff, but I'm more intrigued by like the people that came to the realization of, oh shit, we were wrong. Like, there is a lot of those people out there that are like, wait a minute, everything that we've been told the last 3 years is wrong. And some of them are actually mad at Trump for it, which is kind of crazy too. And then there's some people that I'll just cite one person in particular that I know. I haven't talked to them in a while because they have completely sprouted off the deep end. But I kind of use this person as like my gauge of like, what are the crazies thinking right now? And leading up to it, stop it.
Wait, it's not Andy? You're talking about someone else?
No, somebody else. Leading up to it, he was like, this is going to happen and this is going to happen, and they're going to do the blackout, and they're going to do the emergency broadcast system and all of that. And then it came and went, and like and they were like, he's never going to get sworn in, he's never going to be the president. And then when he was actually getting sworn in, like, oh, he's not actually going to swear in. This is just the setup to arrest all of them. They're going to arrest, Obama and Pence and all of them. And then that didn't happen. And you're like, okay, what now? Well, now they have a new date. I don't know if you know this. It's March 5th.
Oh, like
something's happening on March 5th that it's, when Trump's going to take. Well, Biden never actually swore in, because if you saw like the swearing in happened at 11:48 a.m. or something like that, and it's constitutionally supposed to happen at noon. So that was a fake swearing in that he's not actually president. The military is actually in control of the country now, and Biden is not actually the president. And so they're waiting for a certain amount of time, which falls on March 5th, and then everything comes back and Trump takes back over and the military hands it back over to him, and Biden was never actually president, and all these things. And then like one little, like somebody in this group popped up with, oh, actually Vegas just made a determination they're not paying off any Trump bets or Biden bets until March 5th because they know that's the date that it all happens. And I was like, I really want to just jump in and be like, yeah, Vegas never took any bets. Mm-hmm. And by the way, the offshore places that took them, they already paid off for Biden. So like this whole thing is already wrong. But like I didn't think it was worth it to jump into something like that. But like they just have all these, it's going to happen there. Now it's going to happen. Now this is going to happen. Now this is going to happen. Like, you're just wrong.
Yeah. So like I said, I've been like completely taken by like hearing these stories, and it seems like there's a couple different factions going on, right? There is the absolute Trump loyalist, whatever Trump said was true. And so those are the ones I think you're talking about in the latter conspiracy theories. And then there is different groups of white nationalists who are like, oh man, fuck Trump then. We're still going to move on now. He was too weak and he didn't stand up for the moment. We're going to continue on and find our next person.
Yeah.
So they enjoyed a higher profile because of Trump. And now they need somebody to, again, raise their profile. I'm thinking like Proud Boys. Like they've basically come out and said Trump was a shill and he's weak and fuck him. And he didn't stand up to the moment. Right. On to the next guy. But they have a mission. Then they are, unapologetic white nationalists. There's nothing you're going to do for those people, right? Like they're in their group that they want to be in. I have some hope for the other group that just thought Trump was this idol and this, God in the world, and then are now beginning to realize, like all the people who end up surrounding Trump, that, eventually it's your turn to get burned. right? And the ones there are like that real estate agent who wants a pardon and she didn't get the pardon. They all thought they were going to get pardoned and they didn't.
By the way, also not just wants the pardon. You saw that she also started a GoFundMe to like pay for the business losses that she's had. Over like no. First of all, you flew a private jet to participate in an insurrection. No, nobody give you money. What are you talking about?
Yeah,
that's crazy. And while I'm thinking about it, just to go back on the Trump stuff, because Andy, you're just wrong. Like a lot of them, and actually it happened when he finally sent out the message to stop. They stopped. Like, would it be held against him that he waited so long to do that? And you'd just be like,
that I think is one of the strongest facts that you're going to see. All right. I mean, clearly, Andy, like nothing I'm going to say is going to get through to you. And certainly I'm just going to tell you nothing you're going to say is going to get through to me. Like I'm so far off of that. But I think that is the single strongest factor in favor of Republicans in the Senate voting to convict. Even if you think he didn't incite, even if you think like his speech was okay, and it was no different than any other firebranding that any other politician can do. You know what? I actually think you can have a legitimate intellectual debate on that. I do. Like, political speech is fiery, right? Like it can, the marches happen. Like I get that. I can have that conversation. But if I'm a senator and I'm sitting in the fucking basement of the Capitol while these people go crazy, and we've made a request to get additional law enforcement and National Guard in, and you're sitting around twiddling your thumbs because you think it's fucking hilarious, that's impeachable. Like I don't, waiting 2 hours and then them going around you to get it done. If that's not impeachable, and if you don't think that that's impeachable, I think you're just colorblind to this. I mean, I just think you got a blind spot. Like, you absolutely have an obligation to protect the government that is the democracy that you represent at all times, and allowing your fellow lawmakers in your co-equal branch of government be threatened with violence and potential death if you say it wasn't at your behest, it was certainly with your inaction for those couple hours.
And the thing that really disturbs me most about, because I do think he's going to be convicted. I don't. But the thing that bothers me the most about it is because they're going to vote to convict so that he doesn't run, and they don't want to have to run against him. Like, that's why they're going to convict him, which is the most spineless garbage you could ever imagine. That they're like, okay, we can convict him, push him out. He can't be a part of this anymore. And then if I want to run for president, I'll have to run against him. And that's why they're going to convict him.
Well, and secondarily, yes, I agree with you. I mean, that's what I would do it if I was a Republican. I'd be like, fuck it, I can't have this guy running this party anymore, right? Like I can't be fearing Trump loyalists on my right every time. Let's just get rid of that faction. And so I do think that that's one of the reasons why. I'm not saying that's a legitimate reason, but a lot of why politicians do what they do isn't necessarily legitimate. It's about the next election. But I think the other thing is also about the next election is all of these corporate donors who said that they're not going to donate to anybody who objected to the results. I think they may fear that may continue if they don't vote to convict in the Senate. And you could say all you want about how popular Trump was in the Republican Party. For a time being there, arguably the most popular Republican ever within the Republican Party, according to poll numbers. But let's not forget, the biggest the biggest donations that go to the GOP are corporate. And so if they lose those dollars, they will be at a significant disadvantage to try to flip the House or the Senate in the midterm and be playing from behind in the next presidential election. So I don't think they're going to convict him, though. I think that they're gonna be so dang worried about their local state GOPs railing against them for the next 2, 4, or 6 years, depending on when their next election's up, They're not going to want to have to deal with that. They're not going to want to have to hide and not go home during recesses and meet with people. That I don't think they're going to do it. I think they'll take their hits on the financial side of things to keep the base happy. And I hope I'm wrong, because if this isn't an impeachable offense, then nothing is an impeachable offense. I mean,
totally true. And I thought, I know how people feel about Nancy Pelosi, but I thought she made a great point today too, of when they said, like, why don't you just drop it? Like, leave it alone, move on to do your things and leave that behind. And she said, basically, from now on, you're just telling every president their last 2 months to do whatever the fuck they want to do. Like, well, we're going to move on. We're setting the precedent. We're not going to worry about that anymore. Like, you can't do that. You can't have that stand.
Like I tell my kids, what you condone is what you promote, right? If I let you do something that I don't agree with, then I'm promoting you to do it in the future. You can't do that. There has to be accountability. Does anybody in America think that we should have just buried the hatchet and not gone after Osama bin Laden after the Twin Towers fell? No. Does anybody who was about being the law and order president and the law and order party, has anybody in that party ever said we should not hold somebody accountable who has committed a crime because it's better for forgiveness than accountability? Ever? No, fuck no. We never heard that shit. And nor should we. Accountability is a part, it's twofold. It's for the victims, right? To give them justice. It's to create a disincentive for future actions that are the same. And it's punishment as well for the perpetrator. All three of those things. You got to have it. You got to have accountability. And
when we're talking about, as this comment just said, of the people that need to go, yeah, I think it's a slippery slope on some things. Now, I will also say, like, yeah, Hawley probably needs to go. Like, I think he does. But the ones like Lauren Boebert, with like leading people on tours and showing people, like, okay, she probably needs to go too. And I'm sure people saw the Marjorie Taylor Greene story today, which, she is a straight Q believer in Congress. She also said that she doesn't believe the Parkland shooting happened in Florida. Like, I get that people can vote for who they want to, but I'm not comfortable with that person in Congress. I'm not. And I don't think it's fair for us to say who you can and can't elect until other, districts, because the whole point is, hey, everybody gets to vote for their leader and put them in place. Like, at that point, I think that's far too dangerous for the country to have those people in Congress. Like, something has to be done. And I don't think it's fair to just start kicking people out, but that is fucking ridiculous.
Yeah, and I have a lot of thoughts on this, actually, and part of it is, when I served, we had some people on the far right, we had some people on the far left. You know what? And I think that their voice is important. I do. I was a middle person. I think the majority of the people who served in the legislature with me were sort of middling as well, on the left or the right. But I think that it's important to have those conversations that only sometimes the edges of the party bring up. So I'm not intending to say that they shouldn't be there. They should, in theory. I'm not talking about these specifics, not Hawley and Cruz and Green and all them. What this is a consequence of, in my opinion, is gerrymandering. When you gerrymander a district that is unlosable for one party, this goes to either side. If it's unlosable by one party, the person who's going to win that is the furthest to the right or the furthest to the left. And in order to get further to the right or further to the left, you have to come up with something novel, new, and different than what's already there. And that ends up coming out as extremism. And this is one of, if not the most dangerous part of gerrymandering, is that you're going to end up with a country full of extremists and nobody in the middle, because middle people can't win because the districts are sure things.
Well, I don't feel like we're ever going to fix that.
Oh, I do. Yeah, there's a path to fix that for sure.
because whoever's
Yeah,
in power is gonna set it to be totally in their favor.
No, well, it's not it's not so simple that way, right? Like there was an effort this year to put that on the ballot to have an independent commission determine our districts. For technical reasons, it didn't make it onto the ballot. But there are movements across the United States. So just so everybody knows, states determine the districts within, even congressional.
Right.
So they determine the federal territory and they determine the state territory. And actually, they determine the local territories to a large extent too, because the municipalities and the county commission serve at the pleasure of the state. And they only have the power that's delegated to them. So, and this is a redistricting year, right? It's a census year. So redistricting will happen this year across all 50 states. And the state legislatures will draw up their plans and the governors have to approve it. It has to go through both houses. Some states already do have an independent commission that determines the fairest apportionment of the districts. Cool. Some don't. Nevada doesn't. However, the last time the districts were drawn up, the Democrats had control. They drew up the districts. The Republicans sued and said it was an unfair map. And the court appointed an independent commission to draw up the districts, and they drew it up exactly like the Democrats had. So in this instance, the Democrats did not actually abuse their power. Now, we had 10 years later, let's see. I mean, we don't have the history there, but I think that there is a movement, and Barack Obama has come out strongly in favor of this. He said it's going to be one of the things he tries to work on post-presidency is the end of gerrymandering. So people are aware of it, they understand it, and there are vehicles and avenues by which people can actually vote on it and have their voice heard outside of elected leaders.
Good. I'll believe it when I see it, I guess. But
yeah, I'm not saying it's happened. I'm not saying it's happening this year. Shit, I'm not saying
take
that.
your word for it.
Maybe
Steve,
before I die.
Steve back? Just playing a video?
No, I'm here. How about this one? Lawsuit claims Rice University didn't provide expected college experience due to the pandemic. So now there's a lawsuit, class action, seeking more than $5 million in damages for students who paid full spring 2020 tuition and fees. I'm behind this. To me, the college experience this last 10 months has been ridiculous. That's obscene that they're having to pay full price.
I don't like this headline as if these kids are saying, hey, we didn't get the college experience, because really what the case is about is, hey, not only did you take away in-person instruction and you made everything go online, but you took away all student services, right? There's no health care. I couldn't go to the library. I couldn't go to my I couldn't, any of the student services that I normally have were basically gone, but yet you still kept all my money. So I had a contract with you when I paid for my spring semester up front. You agreed to deliver these services. You took away the services and you didn't give me any of my money back. I like the lawsuit too under that. But I don't like how they're like, oh, the kids are suing about their college experience. It makes them sound like they're pissed that they couldn't have parties when really, I think technically they're right. It's a breach of contract.
Well, would the response from the school be, we didn't know how long it was going to last? Like, what are we going to give you? We're going to give you like pay 10% of tuition, and then all of a sudden, halfway through the semester, everything's okay again? Like,
could have done it at the end of the semester, though. They could have done a refund. Semester was over.
Well, okay. I mean, I guess where in the and I guess it depend what the contract is or what the paperwork is when you sign to go to school.
Yep.
But does it give you specifics of what you like? Or does it just say you're here for a semester? It doesn't say what that semester entails.
I don't recall ever seeing like some fucking contract I signed, but I probably did. I don't remember. Do you remember signing anything like that?
Yeah, I think a lot of it was like student aid stuff, but it was like I don't know. It's a specific contract with the school.
The more interesting defense would be this. Yes, we didn't provide the services, but we still paid the workers, right? We kept everybody on staff because we didn't want to lay anybody off because it was bad for the university, bad for that. And this is a force majeure, right? There's no way we could have planned for this. there's an out clause for us based on an act of God, and we've had that discussion. Is this an act of God? Is this an act of humans? Where that really goes. But I also think the universities got a little greedy here. I really do think that. I mean, I really do think that they should have made some good faith effort for reduced tuition during a pandemic. Now, I'm saying that without seeing the numbers, right? Did they have to pay a whole bunch more for technology and computers for all their staff so they could do all this stuff remotely? Maybe they did. Maybe they spent more money on their students during that semester than any other semester. And if they did, that would be a pretty damn good argument on their behalf.
Yeah, I'm sure there's going to be a lot more of these. So this will be a topic we talk about probably a lot going forward.
Well, I don't think it's accidental that the first one you saw was a private university. I think those are the ones you'll see first.
Let's go back to some of the conspiracy theorist stuff. Adam, I know you wanted to hit on this, and we didn't get a chance to. And man, Moses Wood starting to get it together for UNLV.
Should we do this or no?
I mean, you want to do it. I didn't even know about this. I think it's really interesting. I think it's interesting for the audience, and frankly, it has nothing to do with the kid until we find out.
Yeah, and that's why I want to be careful. That's why I want to be careful about it. Like, because your dad feels a certain way doesn't mean anything about you. And I will, full disclosure here, because I am a journalist, Steve. I spent a good portion of my night going through Moses Wood's social media. Everything that he's liked, everyone he follows, everything he's posted. And I can tell you there is nothing.
And every night with you and our local athletes. Moses Wood today and tonight, Derek Carr yesterday, Darren Carr yesterday.
Oh, by the way, the Derek Carr story has taken a turn too.
Can we? Well, let's address it at the end of the show because we got to set up the story because that was really wacky. All right, so tell us about David Wood and what's going on.
So I'm sure a lot of people saw this story without knowing what the story was and putting it together. There was like one protester in DC yesterday, like one. I mean, everybody's kind of scared away and didn't really show up. It didn't turn out to be what it was because there was military there and stopping everybody. But there was one guy. And he was a very, very, very Q guy. Like, if you listen to him, he's very Q. All in on all these theories and all the craziness about Trump and how Biden didn't actually get sworn in and all this stuff. And he's going on and on. What I didn't know at the time seeing the story, and I do know now, this is former NBA player, former Reno player, and father of current UNLV basketball player, Moses Wood. This is David Wood. This is him. And he was interviewed by a lot of different sites, a lot of different outlets. He's all in. He is all in on Q. And I do think, listen, it sucks for the kid, whether he feels that way or not. Like, I don't know how Moses Wood feels. I don't know how he feels about his dad. It sucks that, your dad is kind of a national spectacle like this. Like, it really is a terrible position for him to be in. It's probably a terrible position to be in the locker room. Like, I wouldn't want my dad to have this kind of spotlight. I don't know, especially if he was. My dad is kooky. I mean,
that's what I was just about to say. Like, I think a lot of us can sympathize with Moses, especially during the Trump era, where a lot of us saw our elderly family members. Maybe it's not your dad, or maybe it's not your mom, but it might be your uncle, your grandpa, or somebody. Like, all of a sudden, just take this turn for like, oh my God, they're stealing the election. And you're like, what the fuck? Like, you're believing that shit?
Yeah.
Like, well, it's on the news. Like, what news? What do you? Let's go through your list. Like, we gotta pre-approve this list of shit you're watching, right? So,
like, Dad, why are you watching OAN?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So I think a lot of people would be sympathetic to Moses and not hold it against him because especially during this last, I'll say 4, but even go longer than that, go 8, 10, 12 years. The Gen Xers like myself, maybe the millennials too, probably have seen this divide in their own family structure on this like political spectrum. And not to be overly judgmental on this, but typically in white families, right, where you're going to have younger white progressive leaning family members and then older white conservative leaning that has now gone off the boat and into the Q deep end. And you know what? It creates these, I hear it all the time, like these real divides in family where it's like, I don't want to go home for the holidays. Like, I don't want to hear this shit, you know? Thankfully, I don't have that experience. Like, my dad's got different political beliefs than I do, you know, and my uncles and aunts do too. They all got their own shit, but it's never stood in the way of me going home and spending time with them and, you know, and our family structure, because I can separate the two. You know, like, I know we're not going to agree on everything politically. That's cool. I love you. You're my dad. You're my uncle. You're my aunt. I love you. Let's go hang out and let's not talk politics, and it's all good. But some people can't get past that. No. And it's a real big problem for their family dynamics. So I feel for Moses. When I read a story about this, I never assume the kid is the same believer as the parent, especially when the parent is an older white gentleman. I don't know how else to put it, you know, like
older white. It's insane that I literally had this conversation. I'm certainly not going to give away the person because a lot of people know who it is. Literally had this conversation 3 hours ago with somebody about who told me his dad's older, white, of course. He said he didn't even know his dad ever voted in his whole life. Had never heard about politics, never talked politics. He said my dad would have been accepting of me if I were gay, if I were whatever, if I had, brought home a different race. Like, nothing. He's like, nothing would have ever been political. Nothing would have ever been discussed. Nothing. And he said in the last 6 months, his dad like kind of veered Q. And he was like, what the fuck happened? Like, what happened? And he said and one of the things he pointed out, and by the way, I know you love like the side effects of the pandemic and things like that. He said that his dad was always out doing something, always around, always, out and about, never cared about politics or anything. And he said he's been stuck in the house for a year, like on Facebook and on watching the news. And he ends up watching, Fox and OAN and stuff. And he said he's gone completely crazy. He's like, we can't even really talk. He's like, we'll talk about sports. That's it. Which is, I was like, man, that sucks. And you also, it kind of goes both ways. Like, you never know what's going to spark somebody's interest in politics or anything like this. I actually told Steve this story the other day that I have a couple friends like that were, they're black guys, are known since like high school. I don't talk to them that often, and I literally would have bet you $1 million that they didn't give 1 inch of any care about politics ever in their life. Ever. Never cared. They are fucking pissed about the Capitol. And I talked to them about it, and they were like, I never cared, and I still don't really give a fuck about politics, but if that was me or my kids, they'd be dead. And like, I need to see change in this country. Like, this is what did it to me. It's like, you never know what kind of events are going to like spark people's interest or, get people involved either way. But like, to them, that was the thing. And to this other person, their dad stuck in the house, and all of a sudden he's down the conspiracy rabbit hole. So like, it's crazy how like events that you don't really think of, like, that can just trigger people to go in certain directions.
I told you early in the pandemic, it was probably around June, one of the SO's friends came over, and we're distant, right? We're hanging out at the pool, and she starts getting into it. And we were like an hour into it, and I walked inside. I'm like, you got to get her out of here. So she's got to go. Oh, because she was also doing the fake news thing. And I'm like, is she fucking stupid? Like, I'm part of the media. My friends work in the media. You got to put 2 and 2 together. All right. Get off of fucking YouTube and the computer. And, if you want to believe that, you got to dial it down around people. You're insulting me. Like, all of this is paid for a certain way. The pool is, get the fuck out.
You're swimming in a pool that's paid for by media.
Right. I mean, it's like this. You're being stupid.
I
But,
actually-
people will be like, "Oh,
actually
you do
just-
sports." No, stop.
I just avoid the conversation altogether, man.
I normally,
like the
I
only
normally do. I normally do,
Yeah.
and she's got. I mean, I also know it's important. People aren't getting to see their friends, so she may
Yeah.
have some friends where I'm like, whatever. But you just tolerate it and you stay away from the conversation. But it was just building up. I'm like, you got to stop.
Yeah, some of the best. I will say on the flip side, some of the best conversations I've had. Normally, I won't talk politics. I swear, unless it's like on your show or in very limited circumstances. But some of the best conversations I have every day are with my business partner Matt Hoffman. So I'm left leaning, he's right leaning. But when we talk, without influence of anything else, without the TVs on, without CNN or MSNBC or Fox or anything else, we agree on like 95% of the things, right? Like oh yeah, okay, that works. And I could have those conversations all day. And we both have said like we don't want to be uninformed. We want to know what's going on in the world. But the commentary news, I'm out on. Any commentary news, I don't want to hear about it. Give me the hard news during the day. Tell me the events of the day. I'll choose how to think about it. I don't need you spoon feeding me my thoughts on this. And I don't want the tribalism that has taken over our politics. I mean, I'm not cheering for a team here, right? If the Democrats say something, it's not automatically right. And if the Republicans say something, it's not automatically wrong. And the tribal politics we have going on right now in this country is exactly that. It's like the Cowboys versus the Redskins. It's like, or the football team. It's nope, that's my team and I'm going to stand behind them. If that's what they say, then that's what it is. And, I like that. I like that Matt and I can have those kind of conversations without that sort of tribalism as a part of it and talk about like good policy because, when I was a politician and I always rejected that label when you tried to put it on me, when I ran for office, I absolutely loved the beginning of session where you actually got to talk about policy, what good policy is and why, before the politics came into play later in the session and killed good ideas and altered them and fucked them all up. But the problem is in being an elected leader, the policy making, while it's the single most important thing you do, is really only about 10% of the job. Politicking and fundraising is the other 90. And political savviness and strategic maneuvering.
I really want to ask a question about Matt's politics, but I won't because I don't want you to put his business out there. But I will say like a similar type thing.
He's fiscally conservative. That's what I mean. Like he like tax structure is important to him.
No, but what I really want to know is because like what I have found and the story that I was going to get to, because I have a very similar like friendship dynamic with two of my really, really good friends are very conservative. But we've always had really, really good political conversations. But I will also say, as like they are actual conservatives, they fucking hate Trump more than I do. Because conservatives hate Trump. Like he's not conservative. So like Republicans like Trump, but conservatives don't. So me and these friends who are so polar, like I am so far left, they are very far right fiscally, not socially, but fiscally very far right. But we do have a lot, like we have really, really substantive, like I'll tell you, like both of these friends were in Cabo when I was just there. And literally we just sat at the pool and talked. We were just talking like actual political philosophies, like that you can't do anything. You can't go to clubs and bars and stuff. So it's just sitting at the pool talking. Really, really good conversations about things.
Yep.
But it's, I think because he, being Trump, is out of the equation. Like that nonsense is out of the equation. So you can actually have like talk. So I think that there is an opportunity, because as much as people said we're so far divided right now, I think we can come together more in terms of right and left. And this new Patriot Party thing is going to be the ones that are way to the outside, is the hope that I would have. I don't know if that's necessarily true, but that would be the hope.
Yeah, and I think that's what you're saying is probably a large part of why me and Matt's conversations work. Also, I don't think he hates Trump in that way. That maybe I hate Trump, but he is I actually consider myself a fiscally conservative Democrat as far as Democrats are concerned. I was the most moderate Democrat that there was in the legislature when I served. Matt's fiscally conservative, but socially, he's here's where the difference is. Socially, he's pretty aligned with me, right? Like he's not against gay marriage. He's not, any of the hot button issues of the social movement over the last 20 years. He would have been like, yeah, that's fine. Just quit taking my money out of my, quit taking taxes from me.
Right.
So really the difference between Matt and I was a priority list, right? To me, the social stuff was more important than the tax structure. And for him, the tax structure was more important than the social stuff, even though we agreed on most of those. And that's why our party identity came from, where he was registered Republican and I was registered Democrat. And so, so when we start talking about fiscal policy, I'm like, yeah. But like, again, he didn't like the Trump tax cuts. You know why? Because our effective tax rate went up under Trump. I didn't get a tax cut. I mean, they said my tax rate was lower, but and technically it was, but they took away all my write-offs as a business because as a professional organization. And so my effective tax rate went up 4%. So, I mean, that's why I think you'll see that the trade war and, the tariffs, that the fiscal conservatives, the true fiscal conservatives, the original ideals behind the GOP, those people weren't behind Trump and were the never Trumpers, the Bill Kristol, the
Lincoln Project.
George Will, Lincoln Project, those guys. Yep.
Yeah.
Next up, Conor McGregor, still in the soup, as he seems to always be. Woman files multi-million-dollar personal injury lawsuit against Conor McGregor. Attorney says this was that at one time quiet rape allegation, then that went public, but the authorities elected not to press charges. So now she's got a lawyer and she's going to try to do it on her own. So what's happening here, Adam?
Yeah, December 2018, I believe, was the incident. As you mentioned, the way Europe reports things is a lot different than here, especially in Ireland. So it was superstar fighter that was named in the investigation. Never said Conor McGregor, but everybody kind of figured out it was Conor McGregor. It appears that the investigation has concluded with the authorities in Ireland declining to press charges. Conor McGregor was asked about this today. Both him and his attorney is also quoted in this story, are like, they finished the investigation and basically said to the defendant, you know what they said. Like, it was essentially like, you know what the authorities said, so why are you even doing this? Now, we don't know if that's true or what's going on, but I guess the question to you was, and I know this happens all the time, Justin, but how much more difficult does it make a civil suit if the authorities investigate something and they're like, no, we're not going to pursue this?
I think it makes it easier.
Really?
Yeah, because if you're pursuing a civil suit simultaneously with a criminal suit, basically you're going to have a hard time getting some of the evidence because the police are going to be holding it. That's number one. Number two, when you try to get a testimony from the defendant, from Conor McGregor in this situation, he's not going to speak. He's going to claim the Fifth Amendment. I don't know if Ireland has the same amendment. Right. But let's talk in America for a second and say, and we run into this all the time. We've got a current civil case right now that's got a pending criminal. To me, it's easier when the criminal's over. Obviously, the best case scenario is if the criminal case is over and there's a conviction or a plea deal taken with the admission of fault, because then I've already got my case won. But this situation is better than a pending investigation going on because none of the criminal investigation comes in. It doesn't matter what the police found or whether the prosecutors decided to prosecute or not. That evidence, the jury never even hears about it. Now, the evidence they collected, you can use, right? But the law enforcement and prosecutors' interpretation of that evidence and what it means is not admissible. So
really,
that
was going to be my question. I'm glad you said that was going to be my question. What if the cops looked into this? And I'm not saying this is the case here. I'm just saying for the purposes of our discussion legally here.
Yep.
The cops look into it and they're like, "Oh, what a fucking liar! Like this did not happen. This is ridiculous." No, you couldn't call the cop and be like, "What did you find in this case? Like, didn't you find this was a ridiculous claim?"
No, you cannot. So here's a really simple example of what is admissible and is not under an investigation by a police officer. Let's take a car accident case, for instance, because everybody's been in a car accident. Policeman comes out there and he hears the stories of two different parties. Okay, fill out this written statement. They write their written statement. And then the officer sees some skid marks, right? Takes the skid marks, takes a picture of the skid marks, measures the skid marks, matches it up with the tire of one of the cars and says, I see these skid marks here. It's 108 feet. You had to have been going real fast. You're at fault. I'm citing you. What part comes in? The written statements by the party come in because that's their own words. The measurement of the skid marks come in. The photographs come in, but nothing about what the cop thought that meant to him comes in. Because that's the job of the jury. The jury is the fact finder in a civil case, right? And so it's immaterial what a police officer thought that evidence meant. So each side would get their experts and they would use the evidence that was collected by the police to come up with their own conclusions as to what they thought happened and reconstruct the accident, what have you. So going back to Conor McGregor, the other thing that makes it easier now is not only would Conor McGregor have to testify, in theory, we're using an American system. I don't know the Irish system.
Right.
But of course, the burden of proof is lower, right? Oftentimes, the prosecutors feel like they know what happened and they think the defendant did it, but they don't think that they have enough evidence to prove beyond reasonable doubt. That standard's super high.
Yeah.
Civil court, the only standard is more likely than not. It's a preponderance of the evidence, more likely than not, 50.1%. So, people know that from the OJ, right? He gets off in criminal court because beyond reasonable doubt, goes to civil court. The Goldmans win in civil court because more likely than not.
Yeah. I'm glad you got to the points that I was going to make about, if they do the investigation and they're just like, no, we're not going anywhere with this, that they can't tell that to the jury then.
Yeah. And I'll also say nobody is allowed to say, virtually nobody, there are very limited exceptions. Virtually nobody is allowed to say in court, I didn't believe that witness or that witness wasn't believable. That's the jury's determination. Their job is to determine credibility. Now, in some instances, psychological instances where there's a psychological defense being put on or there's a psychological component, you can have an expert psychologist or neuropsych do an examination of the person, and they could say, they are qualified to say in front of court, this person I did not believe was being truthful. That's one of the very limited exceptions. I saw that and I can't think of one. I don't know. I think your best objections are the ones that are technically a little bit outside the rules, but you get away with. Most often though, when I'm in court, I'm not a big objector. I'm usually the one pushing the boundaries of getting objections from the other side and being prepared for what those objections are and trying to defeat those objections. But in my trial practice, I virtually do not object at all because I think it draws attention to something I don't like.
Yeah. Now, have you ever try to jump out of your seat to object and you stumble or
hit my knee on the table?
Or you can't get the word out properly?
No, but I was in the middle of these pretrial motions on this big case, my very first trial. I was a very young attorney, but because it had a construction component to it and my background My degree's in civil engineering before I went to law school. So the partner was like, Justin, I want you to take these on. I want you to take this case on. And I was like, okay, cool. I get to, work it with him. And then he was just kind of like, no, you're doing it. And so I was doing these pretrial motions. Maybe this is year 2 of being an attorney. It might have been year 1. And I was super nervous, and I'm fucking feeling like I'm losing this motion that's really important, that I really think we should win. And I feel cotton mouth happening. And they have at the table, a pitcher and cups at every civil desk, right? And so it happens all the time. Lawyers get themselves some water because we're talking for a long time. We've been there all day. We've been talking for 6 hours about these fucking motions, right? But I hadn't gotten water, so I go to get water. My hands are fucking shaking, and I dump the fucking thing everywhere, all over the partner, all over the table, all over me. But I just kept going. I just kept fucking arguing, and the partner was like, "What the fuck?" He's like trying to clean everything up. That was probably one of my more embarrassing legal moments.
Did you win that case?
Let's see. It ended up settling ultimately. I think for something that was beneficial for us, but we didn't get to jury trial. I think I felt strongly about it. I thought we were going to win.
Did you ask the other attorneys to pay your dry cleaning fees for stuff, everything you spilled?
Thankfully, Nevada, well, specifically Vegas, has a pretty cordial and casual legal fraternity. So everybody laughed, the judge, the bailiff, everybody laughed except for probably me and the partner who got the worst of it. He got the worst of it. It went all over him.
Oh, so Dana White's up on the screen. What do we call him? Is he Sergeant Dana White? Lieutenant Dana White? Does he work for Interpol? Is he part of the FBI? What is he?
I think he's an investigator.
Okay, just investigator.
Sergeant? Yeah, Sergeant.
Here's Dana White getting all giddy about his efforts to stamp out piracy.
Came out and said this. All these guys started taunting me. So I went through and I said, you're the guy. And I told my people, I want this guy. Wow. And guess what? We got him.
Man, that was ominous. That was like old school Vegas.
Uh-huh.
Wow.
Some Marlon Brando shit. He's talking like the Godfather over there.
Who was running? Who was running from Whitey Bulger?
Dana.
Jesus, Dana. All right.
They didn't get him yet, though.
You want to set it up? What was he talking about there? And then I'll play the second half.
Yeah. So they've been forever trying to crack down on piracy. Obviously, people that stream their events, and should also point out, like, I saw a lot of people freaking out that they're going to get caught watching illegal streams. Like, that's not what they're looking for. They're looking for people that are actually putting the streams out there. They're looking for the content producers, not the consumers. So they've been focusing on this for a long time. So what he's saying here is, and I'll get into my theory after it, but what he's saying is they have targeted one guy, because when he came out and said, we're going to get all these pirators, we're going to get these people that are putting the streams out, a lot of people on social media, I saw it on Twitter and Instagram, going after Dana like, you'll never catch me. You'll never catch me. I'm too good at it. I hide it too well. I have this VPN, whatever. You're never going to get me. And so apparently Dana was like, we picked out one of those guys that said we're never going to get him, and we've got him.
We got him. We're watching his house. We're listening to his phone conversations.
Wait, what the fuck did he just say?
They're at his house,
yeah,
listening to his phone calls.
By the way, if I just drove up the hill and rolled a video in an hour, right? And I was like, I got him. I'm watching you. What do you think he would do?
Well, he's in Abu Dhabi.
Well, okay, good point. By the way, might be worse if I'm up the hill watching his house when he's not
True.
there.
True.
I mean, bro.
We're listening to his phone conversations. And when he puts up this, if he puts it up on Saturday, we got him. He pops this link up on Saturday.
By the way, who the fuck is that?
I think he's from BT.
Jesus Christ.
He's British.
Today,
Yes.
we got him, and we will arrest him, and I will prosecute him. I will not be nice. I will not give him any leniency whatsoever. I will go guns a fucking.
Okay.
So many questions.
Well, that was one of the first things I thought of. If you were doing a sit-down interview with Dana and he started saying this stuff, wouldn't you be like, what? Like, how would he react if you were like, what are you talking about? You're listening to his phone calls and you're watching him. What are you, insane?
It's crazy.
I mean, here's my thoughts. I'll be interested because Adams probably has more knowledge on it. Either one, it's a complete fucking bluff, right? To try to scare more than one person by thinking they're the one guy.
That was what I was going to get to. That's my theory.
Okay, so that seems like the most plausible. You don't go out with that kind of bravado. If you fucking got him, then you got him. Shut the fuck up and get him, right? Yeah. What's going to speak louder is an actual arrest. Or number two, let's say what he's saying is true. Then I can see a situation in which law enforcement works with a private citizen who's got the access to catch the crime, right? Like if they have the access to the fucking technology of when they're putting out the pay-per-view to see it being stolen in some way that law enforcement would need their cooperation to help catch this person, then he's speaking as a royal we, meaning the law enforcement and us as a team have got him. But I think the first theory is much more plausible. That's why they picked one guy,
If you were law enforcement, like say he is, like who even knows what country he's referring to, but
right.
Say he is working with a law enforcement agency. I heard it was England, where he's trying to claim this has happened. Say he's working with the authorities in England. They've put on all this investigation to pinpoint this person, tap his phone, ridiculous. Tap his computers so they know what he's doing, surveil his house. This is an insane amount of investigation, and now he's going to compromise that investigation,
right? By telling him exactly what he's doing.
Wouldn't
listen? I got Scotland Yard here, and they fucking got his phones. We got everything.
Wouldn't the law enforcement agency be like, bro, the fuck are you doing?
Yeah, we need the conviction. We want him to put it up, not the other way around, asshole.
So that's why I thought this was. He's trying to make every single person that Pirates streams think that they're the one that he's got targeted.
Yeah. Right.
And just hoping that they don't do it, because obviously this is a massive pay-per-view for them with Conor McGregor. They want people to buy it, and he's trying to cut down on piracy this week. That clearly seems to be what's going on. I think. Could be wrong.
I think so too. Yeah, it could be, because of all the reasonable points you just made. Like law enforcement wants a conviction; they don't want the activity to stop.
All this work, they put in, and now that he's going to be like, the guy's not going to put that stream up now, and they're like, we want him to. We need to catch him. What are you doing? This is insane.
I don't know. Maybe if he's working with China, they don't need to go through any red tape. They're like, tap it? Yep, tap. Okay, we got him.
So.
It's just fucking connecting a wire.
I guess if it's a different country, it's a different story. But Justin, would the FBI in America work this closely with a private company to just for something like this? I say trivial. Would they put this many resources into helping a business?
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that they could
surveil the house of a pirater.
I don't know about surveilling the fucking house.
That's what I'm saying.
His. Maybe right. Maybe if they need to prove the VPN is fake, they need to show right that the person is in this house. I don't fucking know. I don't know what goes into catching fucking pirators. But I'll tell you this. The pirators ain't good enough for me to ever find on Google when I need them. I can't ever find that shit streaming. I'm always paying.
I'll send you a link. Don't get the FBI after. Mark, shut up. What are you doing, Mark? And why is Steve showing it? Come on, man.
You know what? I don't know what he's talking about because if it's on Periscope, it's some asshole with a fucking bowl of chips in front of the camera and he's moving it and like it's I don't know if someone has some professional setup you've seen. Most of them suck.
Well,
that's what I hear.
Wherever we're gonna find it from, hopefully it's not the person that is gonna get arrested.
Oh,
the
one.
the
Fuck.
stream up.
Right?
Fuck, Adam, you sent me the one guy.
And I understand if they did catch someone, it's not going to be someone who's like, sitting on their couch with their phone filming it. But it would be awesome if everyone watching like a high level stream and all of a sudden you just see Dana's like, right up.
Gotcha. I got you.
We got you too. I'm going to close with something that's it's not funny or anything, but it's completely offbeat. But I found it fascinating, thought-provoking, and especially with what's going on in Vegas when I drive around and I see all the commercial real estate and all the shopping centers shut down. And I don't know, as a public servant, I thought this would be something interesting to bounce off of Justin. In California, they are looking at all these abandoned shopping centers as a potential housing fix. What do you think of this idea? What are the complications here? Why would it not work? Because we are a city overrun by half empty or completely empty shopping centers, and it would be cool to redevelop and actually make those buildings and areas a productive part of the community.
Would even a shelter? Sorry, would even a shelter fail at Spring Mountain and Rainbow at that Kmart Plaza?
You know what, dude? I swear to God, that's my first concern because I don't live that far away from there. And like every time I drive down Rainbow, I'm like, what is this guy doing? This fucking Kmart has been closed for 10 years. And then, the great thing is what's the corner there? Is that's so there's a Walmart, there's a Target. That Korea Center is like
it's booming.
It's fucking ridiculous. And then you've got this empty eyesore of the goddamn former Kmart. Come on.
The Burger King is still open.
The Burger King.
I used to live right around the corner from there. My first house was right there on Flamingo and Rainbow in Spring Valley. Nice. So I know that area so fucking well. And they've revitalized that Walmart. They turned it into a super fucking Walmart. It's got all the newest shit. The Koreatown Plaza's fucking booming. Everything's going great. And that guy can't figure out that fucking corner, man. I don't know what's going on there. But as to this idea, I'm so glad you sent that story to me. I hadn't heard it. I fucking love the idea. I liked it so much I forwarded on to a couple of elected officials that are still friends of mine to say, hey, man, like everybody's always looking for some good ideas. Affordable housing is always, this term that people use that they want to achieve, but nobody comes up with great ideas on how to actually get it done. I love the idea. We have a particular problem because big box stores are out. Big retailers are out because Amazon's in. So it's hard to fill those big spaces because the companies don't need that much space. And if we could turn the huge parking lot, bigger parking lots than Allegiant Stadium in front of these former Kmarts and turn those into some dense housing and revitalize those shops, use the big box store areas for like community center for those areas, I fucking love it. I love the idea.
Rick's picture is perfect for just that Burger King sucks too. Close it down the pictures.
It is a pretty bad Burger King. I have to give him that. But what was it? Is it the fucking Applebee's over there? Or is it Chili?
That's Applebee's. That's Floyd Mayweather's Applebee's.
Oh man. But there are some challenges to it, right? Because there's a lot of commercial enterprises that cannot be directly converted to residential because of hazardous materials. The one that comes off the top of my head is like a dry cleaning service. If there's been a dry cleaner, you cannot turn that into anything that's like residential or anything that's not like basically a dry cleaner without doing a super expensive cleanup. Because under federal guidelines, I think it's not a brownfield, but it's technically, with hazardous materials having been in there. And dry cleaning is not the only one. There's tons of them like that, different industries. So it might not be as easy as cool. Let's slap some paint on it, put some walls up, and throw in a bathroom. We'll call it a house. It might be more expensive. In California, it sort of makes sense though, because their housing shortage is so severe, prices are so high that the reclamation costs of doing that would easily be assumed and still be a benefit for any affordable housing.
The BK is also a hazardous site.
Yeah, no shit. Yeah. Yeah, and I'll tell you, the Target across the street is a little dodgy for a while there too. I think it's cleaned up, but it was that was my Target.
Is that right? I was getting the Target. Yeah, it was getting kind of rough.
Yeah, yeah.
Dude,
but there used to be a sushi place right at where the Koreatown Plaza is right now.
Yeah.
Used to be Rainbow Sushi over there. All you could eat and all you could drink on Thursdays for $25.
Wow.
Well, that is one of the things that I miss, not the most, but that's one of the things I miss about the pandemic. Have you guys been to an all-you-can-eat sushi?
Hell no.
Nope.
I went to what is it? Is it Jenga over on Fort Apache and whatever it is? I used to live over there too. But we went in there, we went with a group of 6. They wouldn't let us sit together, so then we were distanced at the table. I was actually 7, so it was kind of lousy. But looking forward to all you can eat sushi opening up again at some point. Please.
Yeah.
Will you please?
Some things are just going to be a victim of the pandemic, like the salad bar. I just don't think we're going to get that again.
Your sweet tomatoes working spots are never coming back.
Yeah, those are done. Oh, they're already closed. I mean, they're already closed.
Yeah,
like,
the one at Best in the West by there's a new Chick-fil-A on like Rainbow and 95 sort of Lake Mead area. The sweet tomatoes there's been closed up for like 7 months.
But they announced it like the first week of the pandemic. They shut down and said we're not going to reopen.
Yeah.
So I think they were just like on that version anyway.
You guys are Chick-fil-A fans. I'm not. But did you see what has to be the largest Chick-fil-A in the world that they just converted the old claim jumper over on Fort Apache and Charleston?
We drove by it. Drove by it last night, and I was like, "Wait, they used that whole building,
building.
And then
double drive-through,
the double drive-through, but it's still like 20 cars in each line." I'm like, "What? Yeah. Will you just wait until it slows down?" God almighty.
Never does.
Never.
Dude, you seen that Chick-fil-A and that Cane's a block away over on Sahara and Hualapai?
Yeah.
That Cane's line goes through the whole fucking complex and winds around, and people still get in that line. You can't even go to that Cane's.
We were over there looking because there's some kind of chicken place out of LA called Dave's Hot Chicken, and they took over some fast food building like right down the road from the claim jumper. So that I don't know if there's a real Dave or not, but they're going to get the spillover. Like people look around and be like, there's a chicken joint there. Let's go there.
Hey, it's my time. I'm going to be signing that franchise agreement in about 10 days, and then I'll start making some announcements.
Do it. Do it. You know what I say? Fuck chicken unless it's a topping. That's all. I'll leave it at that.
What?
Wings. I can't say fuck. Oh, that's a good point. Wings. Yeah. Yeah. No, I was lying. I'm fibbing completely. I'm not going to fuck chicken. I love chicken.
How long is the process from signing papers to opening?
I have 12 months to find a location, but I don't want to take 12 months.
Okay. And then you find 12 months to find a location, and then 4 years to build. It's like
it's got to be up. Like 3 to 4 months should be the time within finding a location to be up and running. But I bought the whole area, so I bought 3 restaurants. Wow. 3 restaurants in 6 years. I got 6 years to build 3 restaurants.
Do it. I'm so ready to make the transition to line cook.
Each of them will have a studio in it, correct?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Hey, if you guys want to christen the 3BC, we could do this podcast from studio next week.
All right. Well, we were planning on doing Cofield and Company on Wednesday. So like I told you, I don't know that we do the first one on terrestrial radio in case we have a little technical glitch, but right after that we'll do podcast. Yeah, so that's very, very exciting. Lots of cool stuff. What does Kirky do when I want? You what did I say? What want? What do you want to do? Kirky do? Which part?
He wants to work there?
I think he wants to work there.
Full service Pro Martini. It's not a fast food joint. It's a brew house. Trying to get some gaming in there too.
Wow, look at you.
We'll see.
You're never gonna be in a courtroom again.
From your lips to God's ears.
You're a restaurateur and podcast host.
Yeah.
This, you know what you need to do is a reality show with the entire crew that we know working at this restaurant.
That
Jesus
would be
Christ.
fucking awesome.
Oh my God.
That's the premise of Vanderpump Rules.
Yeah, but this would be so much better.
Pro Martini, we need everything. Follow me on Twitter and DM me.
We're not hot. We're nightmares. So there should have already been a reality show about sports radio stations. I don't know why they missed the boat on that one.
Yeah. Well, too busy making yacht shows that you're watching like Below Deck.
Boy, oh boy. The SO sat down like for 14 minutes with me tonight, and I was like, "Here's Hannah. Here's the captain. Here's this story." And she's like, "All right, shut up."
Have you guys watched Yellowstone?
Yes.
I'm not.
I haven't seen the last season though.
That's where I'm at right now. I'm on the last season.
What do
I
you like?
burned through that one pretty quick. I liked it.
What do you like most about it? The constant ass shots of the one chick.
Um,
That's not like that. Just a nod. It's a, you know what? I'll just say this about the show. It's. Do you ever see Banshee?
I did
You
not.
you got to go back and watch Banshee. I think it stars. Banshee's awesome because it's like, it's just super cheesy B movie, and like the main character just fucking fights. He just fight. It's just fist fight every goddamn episode. And Yellowstone has some Banshee aspects. As you watch sometimes, you're like, my God, this is so cheesy, but I love it. The acting's so terrible. Yellowstone, I watch, and I'm like, man, the acting's terrible. And then Costner comes in, and you're like, man, he's good.
I don't think the
comparatively-
acting's terrible. I actually
Really?
so that I see what I like about Yellowstone is that I think it's like a Western version of Succession, but more believable in that this none of the characters in Succession had a single redeeming quality, and that's just like not believable. There's got to be some good somewhere in some of these motherfuckers, but there isn't, which is part of the reason why I like that show, but is also makes it like really not believable and makes the acting seem a little bit weird. For Yellowstone, they all have some little redeeming quality. You're a little conflicted on a little bit of each of them. There are one or two of the actors who are a little rough, but there's some that are fucking awesome.
I love Yellowstone and Sons of Anarchy on horses.
And Costner is fucking good, man.
He's
Good in that.
he's good, and comparatively, he's great. Who's your favorite character? Because I get the same answer from almost everyone.
Casey.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Who
do you get from everybody else?
Isn't the guy's name Rip?
Oh, Rip's fucking cool too.
People love Rip, because he's a badass, and then like he shows his softer side, the big cowboy.
Nah, I'm always cheering for Casey. I like Casey the best.
Yep. Kirk and I are going to work the grill. Adam's got he's on the headset. He's got to be yelling at people, controlling.
It's not a fast food place.
Where's the food? No, man, you gotta make sure the food gets out once we throw it up there. It's fucking
no headset. He's gonna have the little tied in mic where he's like checking in with the back. He's clicking his thing. Hey, what's the turnaround time up here?
I'll use the below deck method where it'll be like, what is it? Adam, Steve, Adam, Justin, Adam, Kirk, and then we just don't answer, and he's like, fuck. What?
He's like, did anybody read the rules I posted in the break room earlier?
Then he walks back. I'm flipping shit. I'm like, I'm busy, dude. Busy.
Sounds like a mess.
Tossing wings.
Sounds fucking amazing.
The wings of the sauce. Be like, what? Come on.
I don't think this is going to work out.
I'm telling you, I don't think people realize what our group working in a restaurant would be like.
Oh,
it would be
awful.
Fucking nuts.
First of all, the restaurant would be awful. Not the food and everything, but like it would just be chaos.
Adam front of the house, Kirk, myself, maybe JVT. Put Ari's definitely front of the house because he has to take the goddamn brunt. You know what? We got to go. This is a whole nother podcast another night.
The best part would be to not let McKinnell cook and just have him be so outraged. I'm the best cook here. Like, no, you stay in the front.
We got to think about this. We got to give everyone a role that's perfect for them. That's awesome. All right. Well, that was good, guys. Way to end on a laugh. Thank you to the audience. We're back tomorrow. DC and the Sunshine Man. I think Dave's going to be mad about something. He's going to be worked up. Dave is 68 in like a week. He's an old man. He's getting more and more bitter. I like it.